Oh, thank you, Natasha. And good evening, everybody. We're really excited to be here with you, to have 30 minutes of your time tonight. And we'll do some intros and then let you know what we're going to do with 30 minutes. My pre-warning is this is prime bedtime for my children. So, if a 6-year-old comes in to say goodnight to you, please just understand. I'm sure lots of us.
That.
We will, yeah. You say that now. He won't go. He has lots of ideas on thought leadership, I promise you. So let's do intros. Jill, do you want to go first?
Yes. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that first bit. I thought it was fantastic. Actually, loved those panel discussions. I'm Jill Whitty-Collins. I am lots of things, as is Helen, author of Why Men Win at Work, consultant, executive coach and mentor, keynote speaker, all those things. But in my previous life, I was at P&G for 26 years, ultimately as senior vice president for the beauty business for Europe, India, Middle East and Africa. So it's fantastic to be here, and I'm so excited to be doing this session with Helen and her squiggly careers, which she's just one of my absolute heroes. So Helen, over to you. Tell everyone about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Jill. So my time at P&G was much shorter and longer ago, actually. I had to look on LinkedIn to be like, when was I there? So it was in 2006, so a long time ago. And I was actually only there for a year because I was sort of working out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to live and a whole host of things, which I'm happy to talk about, should you wish me to. But my squiggly career, we can talk a little bit about that because it's certainly the thing that I do a lot of my thought leadership on, has taken me to work in lots of different organizations. So I've been commercial marketing director at Microsoft. I've been head of marketing and launched a business for Virgin. And now I spend time running my own company, which was never the plan. That's the thing about squiggly careers. Plans aren't always helpful for squiggly careers. And so now I run my own company, Amazing If, and we work with organizations to support them with career development. And we also help individuals to succeed in squiggly careers. So we have a podcast and a book called The Squiggly Career. And I run that with my friend and co-founder, Sarah Ellis. And it's what I feel very fortunate to spend all of my time at work doing, and some of my time probably outside of work when I should be doing other things as well. And that's another thing about running your own business. And so in the time that we've got together, what we thought we would do is tell you a little bit about, I guess, the thought leadership that we are both driving, which is different. And so I thought we kind of soft interview each other a little bit about it, and then share with you a few ideas, like 3 things that we've learned through thought leading in our own way, but then open it up to a Q&A. So to take your questions, and if we can help you, if there's something that you want to know that can get you started and get your voice out there and help you to be a thought leader with whatever it is you want to do, between us, we hope that we can maybe help you with some of the things that we've done. The way to do that, by the way, is Q&A at the bottom of the screen. So Jill and I will probably talk for sort of 10 minutes or so about what our thought leadership platform is and what we've learned. And then we'll open it up to Q&A for the other part of the session. And if you have any questions, if you just pop them into the Q&A, then what we'll do is we'll answer those towards the end of the session and try and get through as many as we can. So Jill, so your thought leadership kind of platform, everything that you're doing around gender, where did it start from and what have you learned in spending your time doing it?
Yes, so yes, I am. I think anyone who knows me knows I am on a gender equality mission. But I wasn't always. I wasn't always at all. I was what I call one of those women for a long time who, of course, I was aware of the gender equality issue, but I hadn't personally really been hit by it. The barriers hadn't got me, and so I realised now that I was just very, very lucky for a very, very long time to swerve them. And it was actually really, for me, only once I got to the senior vice president level when I started to see it and understand it. And really, that was the first time I'd been in a male dominant culture and environment. The first time in my career, actually the first time in my life, really. And wow, it was really like hitting a completely different temperature. You know, it was like taking a plane from Switzerland in winter and landing in Dubai in August. It was a very different atmosphere. So I really started to see it, and I saw the impact that it had on women when they really were in the minority in a room rather than an equal voice. And actually, I became absolutely fascinated by it. That was my reaction, was to think, well, this is really interesting. What the hell is going on here? I never experienced this before. And so I really became a student of it, read lots of books, read lots of articles, and that's what led me to really see the extent of it, actually. I just hadn't realized, and I saw that, you know, this absolutely was not about me. This absolutely was not about the women around me. It absolutely was not about P&G. This was something that women were experiencing everywhere, every company, every culture, every country. And, you know, just really getting hit in the face, and still am actually every day, by the data. You know, wherever you look at the leadership level. It was mentioned in these panels. Look at the leadership levels, you'll see 90% plus men. Only 9% of heads of state are women. They're very visible, and you probably know all their names, but they're only 9%. 7% of CEOs, only 24% of parliamentary seats, which is obviously a massive issue, because that's where things are discussed, decisions are made, really bad decisions are sometimes made because of that. And yeah, only 25% of what we see, read, hear about in the news is women. So I became fascinated. I realized the extent of it. And I thought, this is absolutely incredible, actually. This is just unbelievable. I mean, last time I looked, women are 50% of the population. All the data says women have equal intelligence, equal competence, at least equal leadership ability. So why does this happen? Where do all the brilliant, talented women go? And, you know, especially knowing that, again, there's stacks of data saying that businesses are stronger when they're run by, you know, an equal and diverse group. Societies are better and stronger. Life is better. So I decided at that point, you know, I really felt I had an understanding of something that I hadn't understood before. It was kind of an epiphany, really. So I decided, I'm going to write a book about this, and I'm going to share what I've learned and what I understand. And I'm going to try and play a part. I'm going to try to contribute to making inequality history in whatever small way that I can. So that's, you know, that's how I got here. And I know, you know, you had a very different journey, Helen, I know, very different experiences, but I know that what we have in common is they led you to just something that you really felt you saw and understood and wanted to share.
Yeah, I think they're really interesting things. So I guess my, so for anyone that doesn't know, obviously I work on careers, and I guess my tipping point for getting involved was about 2012 when I was at Virgin. And one of the things that I was noticing was that a lot of people felt that they wanted some support with their career. So they were saying things like, I don't know what I want to do or where I wanted to go. But when they were looking for support, it wasn't very available to them, because either in their organization, that sort of support was limited by level. So it was like when you got more senior, you got a coach, when you got to go on that course. Or it was a bit too academic, which is something I quite like, but I appreciate it's not everyone's idea of fun. And so that wasn't very helpful for people, wasn't very actionable. Or worse still, it was like an inspirational quote on Instagram: go do a job you love. And it was like, lovely statement, but help me. And so I started my business with this realization that people were experiencing all this change and uncertainty in their career, but they couldn't get the help, and that actually career development didn't feel very democratized. And for quite a long time, I thought I'd work within organizations to do that. So I'm quite interested in your tipping point, because, you know, you were at P&G, and actually there was a point at which, you know, I was at Virgin, large organization, and Microsoft, and for quite a long time I thought I'll be a thought leader within the business. So I thought I'll go and work in these large organizations that I admire, and I'll change them from within. And at some point I thought, do you know what, as much as I can do that, I think I want to try and change from outside the organization. And did you have that moment of it going, do I tackle this within P&G or do I go outside? And if you did, what was the tipping point for you?
I had exactly that moment, and honestly mine was more a case of I really tried from the inside, but I would say failed. I think it's actually really difficult, I may even say impossible, to change a dominant culture when you're not part of the dominant group. And I think, you know, the dominant group and the senior people don't have a huge responsibility, because I think when you're in the you know, when you're not the goldfish in the bowl, it's really difficult, because you kind of start to be seen as part of the problem. And, you know, I was told at one point that I should tone it down on the women's stuff because it didn't look good for me. So I actually tried, but came to the conclusion, it was more a conclusion of I'm going to have to do this from the outside because I can't change this. Rather than more of a conscious. I think if I'd felt I really could have, I would have tried and stayed and tried to do that. But I'm glad I didn't, because I think we can make so much more difference on the outside.
I think mine was probably more, Microsoft was super supportive actually, but mine was I actually had a different job to do. So it was like I was paid to be a marketing director, and there was only so much sort of squiggly career stuff I could do in my day job really, and it was about how much time I wanted to commit to this agenda. So that was a big tipping point for me. So what have you learned then from you doing it and investing it, trying to do it within the company, and then everything that you've done outside of it? If you had like Jill's top 3 tips on thought leadership, what would it be?
I mean, there's so many, aren't there? And I know you've got some brilliant ones, so I'm not going to steal those. I think the first thing I would say to anyone who is sitting there thinking, you know, I've got something to say, I've got something to share, I've got something that I think could contribute to important change, is really just do it. Just do it. If you think you've got something to say, you have. And within that, you know, perfectionist syndrome not allowed. You know, a perfectionist syndrome is one thing that plagues a lot of people, especially women, not just women. No time for it. Don't let it limit you. You do not need to be perfect to do anything, by the way, but you certainly don't need to be perfect to do this. Just get out there and do it. And, you know, perfectionist syndrome holds us back from so many things, and we mustn't allow it to. I think the second thing I would say, specifically in the context of writing a book or something similar, if that's something you're interested in doing, is my massive learning was people buy you before they buy your book. I thought, well, I've written this book and I think it's great, so, you know, I'll go and get someone to publish my book. And I realized, no, they'll buy you first. They only want to read your book if they think that they're interested in you, and why would they bother reading your book? And so you have to get comfortable with that. You have to get comfortable with talking about yourself in a way that you wouldn't necessarily naturally do. I remember when my PR agent first wrote a bio for me to send it to a publisher, and I was blushing with embarrassment at what she'd said, and I read it and I thought, well, technically it's all true, but I would never have described myself that way. Get comfortable with the fact that you need to, this is not time to be modest about yourself and your credentials to talk about what it is that you're talking about. And the third thing I'd say is get yourself ready to be rejected, and by the way, to be ignored. Get yourself ready for the fact that you will be contacting people and you just may never ever hear from them, and you might have even been put in touch with somebody and you may never hear from them again. Get used to it. For every 99 things that you think are going to lead to something, only one of them will, and it might take 6 months. Get ready for it. And for me, this was a bit of a culture shock, right? I was a senior vice president. Frankly, I got to the point where if I sent an email, I pretty much got an email back within about 4.5 minutes. So this has been a bit of a shock for me to be ignored in this manner, but very good for me, I would say. And when it does come off, when they do write back, it's fantastic. But you got to toughen your skin up, I think, on that stuff. So what about you, Helen? Tell us your big your big
It's
tips.
so true. The lack of response sometimes so true. Because we have the podcast and we're currently writing our second book. We've got a couple of weeks left before our second book has to get into our publishers. And there's a few things that there are a few asks out for people. And yeah, there's sometimes a lack of response. And you're like, oh, how do I get to you? So yeah, I empathize with that one. And I've got 3 things. I'll say them quickly and then I'll go through them in slightly more detail. So my first is very similar to yours, about you've got to get used to putting your work and your words out into the world. And what I mean by that is, whether it's a blog post, a LinkedIn post, something you put out on your intranet, something that you share around or you talk about on Clubhouse. Everyone's on Clubhouse at the moment. Like whatever it is, you've got to get used to just getting your imperfect work out into the world, because it's never really perfect, because it's never really done. And so just get used to doing it. I still put things out, and they've got typos in and all kinds of things, but it's just my thoughts, and I try and put it out as regularly as I can, because you kind of get a bit of a response as well. That's what I think, when you put your work and your words out into the world, you see what sticks. So for example, the concept of squiggly, which is currently probably one of the noisiest parts of my business, if you like, that's the thing that people most share and talk about. Squiggly was not such a headline for us 8 years ago. We had other things. We talked about happy work and various other things, but squiggly was the thing that stuck. Our podcast used to be called The Amazing If Podcast, because our business is, wouldn't it be amazing if more people love their jobs? But squiggly stuck. So we went with squiggly, and you only learn that by putting your work and your words out into the world, and then using that insight to then think about, well, how can I create more stuff that sticks? So that would be kind of my first one.
Yeah.
My second thing is accelerate through advocates. So if you want to be a thought leader, the community that you build around your message is so important.